Sync. Hello everybody, my name is Xander, and today we are talking about the latest Aurora album, A Different Kind of Human. Different Kind of Human is the third, or possibly second, depending on how you're counting it, outing of the indie pop sensation Aurora, with a just ridiculously cult fanbase. But before I even go into it, I feel like I should explain why I'm so late. This review is like 3 months after the album has come out. The reason for this is that it's a multiple part album, and if I'm reviewing this, the other one will be late anyway, so fuck it. Now, I first found Aurora back in 2016 with the release of her album All My Demons Greet Me as a Friend. And, I'm just gonna cut it simple, I did not really like this album. Nothing was atrocious about it, but its production and mixing was just all terrible. Its production was somehow bloated, yet really airy and spacious at the same time, meaning second to second the songs were just failing to grip me in any way. And this could be excusable if, she had really good lyrics, but she just kind of didn't. And with her weirdness that wasn't quite Billie Eilish tier, but still very present, these all kind of confounded to the whole album just being mashed potatoes. There's nothing inherently wrong with it, but ew. If I were to review it, I'd probably give it a 4, maybe a 5-. However, even with all this, it's not that I didn't see any potential in her. Tracks like Runaway were actually kinda decent. Being burned by the first album, I didn't really check out her sophomore project. It was called Infections of a Different Kind and featured a new, more tribal-inspired aesthetic. Now this album, based on the cover art, as you can probably tell, is heavily connected to her newest album. Although, at a glance, it's not entirely certain what the connection is meant to be. She may be trying to carry some kind of narrative through the album, but to be honest, it feels more like they're just aesthetically connected than anything else. This review could mostly serve as a review of her second album on top of her first album, given that they share a lot of things in common. And so, for some reason, if you're here to just know my opinions on that, it's the same as the new one, just marginally less. So while I'm referencing the cover art, let's talk about her aesthetic. Throughout this album, she's gone with very tribal aesthetic. My brother's friend walked in my room while I was listening to this for the review and said, "Is this jungle music?" And to be fair, he had a point. Songs like Animal, referencing hunting, songs like Dance on the Moon, talking about astral superstition, and the song River, talking about what the fuck do you think? And this mostly carries through more than just the cover art and the lyrics, with a lot of the production being more unique because of it. And this highly unique production is definitely a strength for the album. Especially in this modern pop climate where we're just covered in trap beats and basses, and that one really specific brass synth. And with the production also comes her interesting vocal styles. It's pretty rare on this album that you'll hear Aurora on her own, not because she's bringing in guest singers, just because there's normally about 3 or 4 layers of her own voice on every single track. Many of them are harmonised quite nicely, see Mothership, that almost kind of sounds like her voice is some kind of weird tractor beam, but a lot of them are just kind of singing over herself with no harmony. And I mean, this isn't at all a bad thing, it's just worth noting. I'm actually a massive fan of this multi-layered vocal production, especially when you take into account her vocal cadences throughout the album. Oh, and just by the way, I mean speaking cadence, not music theory cadence. It's very clear that she gave a lot of thought to the writing of this album, not necessarily the lyrics, but how they're placed. In that it feels like she's always accentuating the right words to have the hooks just be as impactful as possible. See the way she sings the word river and moon on their respective tracks? This is also served by the fact that most of the hooks on most of the songs are extremely catchy and memorable. It keeps the album exciting and easy to get through, more memorable, as well as more radio-friendly, which it might not otherwise be given her weird aesthetics. And now that I've talked about the positives, I may as well mention that the aesthetic is just that, an aesthetic. It doesn't really go anywhere. Now, her fans may be screaming at me right now, but what about Mothership? Yes, and spoilers, I guess. Throughout the album, the aesthetic just kind of change. In the start, she seems to be exclusively referencing hunting and rivers, whereas in later tracks, she references more contemporary topics like money and spaceships. And while maybe she had some big emotional arc in mind, it doesn't really land properly. Like I said at the start, supposedly these albums are supposed to be linked and maybe they're going somewhere, but overall it isn't as connected as it maybe wants to be. Don't get me wrong, it is certainly better than nothing, I just get the sense that she thinks her albums are smarter than they actually are. There are lots of good lyrics on this album, such as "You're hunting for love, killing for pleasure, lost in the concrete jungle." And while it's nice to see some kind of direction, again, I don't think it's actually going anywhere. This isn't really aided by the lyrics, who, with those exceptions, are pretty vague a lot of the time. They draw upon the aesthetic nicely, but again, do nothing else. But if we try and look past what this album is maybe trying to be and just what it is, a bunch of pop songs that are quite above average, I think this album is just fine. It's possible that the third album will completely turn me around on this, especially as my enjoyment on this album have showed a direct curve. And maybe with the concept of the mothership being brought in, she'll go with a completely techno-punk style and completely revolutionize all of music. But I find that unlikely, and so I'm way more tempted to just take everything at surface level. Fun and unique aesthetics with some catchy hooks. And because of that, I'm entirely comfortable giving this album a 7-. Very above average pop music with not too much else. And yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this album. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe, shut up in the comments below, and goodbye. Is that A supposed to end this video? Well, and I'll see you later. Next time, my dudes. My name's Jeff.